Hello, I'm Orkan Amashov. More than once in recent years, many of us have felt ourselves standing on the brink of a third world war. That same sense of impending catastrophe returned just a few weeks ago when the United States struck Iranian nuclear sites. And once again, the spectre of global escalation loomed large. From the never-ending troubles of the Middle East to the war in Ukraine and Europe's wider challenges, there is a vigorously perpetuated feeling of doom, an atmosphere heavy with uncertainty. The guest of AnewZ Exclusive today is a man who held one of the most sensitive portfolios in European public life during one of its most demanding tests. Αβραμόπουλος served as European Commissioner for Migration, Home Affairs and Citizenship during the height of the continent's migration crisis. He's also former Foreign Minister and Defence Minister of Greece, and presently serves as a member of the Hellenic Parliament, and is also member of the Nizami Ganjavi International Centre. Mr. Αβραμόπουλος, what a great privilege and delight to welcome you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Privilege and the honor is all mine. I'm more than happy.
Thank you.
Connected with Baku, with you, and of course I'm open to any discussion and questions you can ask me during these turbulent times, as I told you, beginning for the whole world.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. There are those who believe that a new global war began actually back in February 2022, and that we are in effect already at war. But assuming that what may have started is not yet what we would recognize as a third world war, how concerned are you that we may be approaching a truly great catastrophe, or that we are in the brink of something inherently unseemly?
Mr. Amashov, we are all very much concerned of what's happening in the world. We are not yet in what one would define as a conventional world war, but we are certainly living through the most dangerous period of our modern history, especially of the period after the Second World War. Europe and the wider world are on a knife's edge, if I'm allowed to say, with multiple crises feeding of each other. The risk of a wider escalation is real, it is there. Any incident, any moment can trigger a catastrophe. Let's hope that the unthinkable will be avoided. Because yes, there are leaders who are thinking like this today, but I don't think they are stupid, because such a thing would lead the whole world to the abyss.
And specifically about the European Union, you served as EU Commissioner at a time when diplomacy and multilateralism were considered paramount and praised. Now with Trump's ascendance to power, it looks like the multilateralism is no longer what it used to be, perhaps during those years. And today many analysts are saying that European Union seems to have been sidelined in relation to many global matters, including, for example, the subject related to Iran. Looking at the state of the European Union today, would you say it is a lesser force in global affairs than it was during your time as Commissioner?
You do very well to ask me this question, and I will be frank in my reply. The European Union is there. It remains an oasis of economy, still a force of influence. But today, as you said before, its geopolitical voice is more fragmented. And I can tell you why. Because after this successive crisis, economic crisis, refugee crisis, unfortunately, instead of showing more solidarity among member states, everybody had started following its own national path, influenced and pushed by domestic dynamics. So the European Union did not reach this level of integration. What I always say, if Europe wants to survive in the future, it has to complete the European project by adopting a common defense and foreign policy. But in order to complete this project, member states should speak with one voice, and it is not the case today. When we talk about the European Union, it's better today to refer to the governments, not to the European Union as a bloc, because the vision, the dream of the forefathers of Europe, who decided after the Second World War to create this larger space of stability, peace and cooperation is at risk today. Well, without any exaggeration, I can tell you that given all what I told you so far, European Union is in deep existential crisis. Because, as I told you, it became an economic power, but it didn't manage to become a geopolitical power.
So, and one of the challenges European Union is presently facing is said to have been related to issue of migration. You once stated that Europe would always need migrants and that scapegoating migrants for society's ills was an affront to the European project itself. Are you still of the self-same view in mid-2025? And how does the migration challenge now compare with the crisis during your tenure?
Well, I still believe, Orkan, that Europe will be in need of migration, not only for demographic reasons, but also for economic reasons. Nevertheless, this phenomenon of our times, it is not handled properly. Let me tell you something. Now we are speaking, more than 400 million people around the world are on the move for various reasons. And we know what are the root causes of migration. Europe, at that time, the year 2015, was taken by surprise, including my country, Greece. At that moment, I was the European Commissioner, and it was my job to set up from scratch the European agenda on migration, but also the European agenda on security, because within my portfolio, I had the fight against terrorism, against organized crime, the so-called home affairs. So it was a difficult issue for me to handle, because to convince 28 member states at that time to convene and to start talking to each other and adopt a common policy, believe me, it was a very difficult task. Finally, we made something at that time. But as you said, we said before, comparing what Europe was 5, 6 years ago and what is now, there is a huge difference. But the answer is very clear. Yes, we shall be in need of migrants in the future, but we have to create legal pathways for them to come to our countries. Because this situation, as it is right now, it's a big problem. And by the way, I want to tell you that one of the problems today that all countries of Southern Europe are facing are the uncontrolled flows, especially from Libya. From which part of Libya? Not the legitimate part of Libya run by a government recognized by European Union, United Nations and NATO, but the eastern part ruled by this guy called Haftar, who is making our life difficult. And he doesn't seem to be very cooperative in order to address migration. But Europe will be in need of that. So, yes, we protect our borders, and everybody is doing that. But on the other hand, the issue has become political, not numerical. And the global community was not and still is not prepared to address this issue.
You earlier talked about European unity, about the necessity of having one voice in relation to critical matters. You were European Commissioner at a time when Britain voted to leave the European Union. How damaging was Brexit to the idea of European unity, to the European project? And to what extent do you believe recent UK-EU agreements can heal the divisions it created back 9 years ago?
I believe that in the United Kingdom, a lot of people have started changing their mind. Definitely and undoubtedly, Brexit weakened the European project, no doubt about it. Politically, but also symbolically. However, recent, as you know, UK-EU agreements show that pragmatism has started prevailing. Rebuilding trust, yes, it will take time, but the fundamentals that bind us remain stronger than what divides us.
And talking about, we already talked about migration challenge, and also, in a sense, we hinted at the possibility of further enlargement. On the question of European enlargement, migration and enlargement are often deeply intertwined. Do you think Europe, in its current form and shape, has reached its kind of limits of geographic expansion? And what are the implications of new aspirant countries seeking entry at this juncture?
Orkan, Europe's enlargement is not limitless. We know that. But it must remain open to credible aspirants. Enlargement and migration are linked. but well-managed accession processes, all these processes strengthen Europe's unity and security. I was responsible for that. Closing the door entirely would be strategically short-sighted.
And finally, a brief word on the South Caucasus, in particular Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan in recent years has emerged as a key energy partner and increasingly visible geopolitical actor on its own, in its own right. How is Azerbaijan viewed in today's European strategic thinking, and what role do you think it might play in the wider regional configuration? I also would like you to reflect on the recent escalation between Baku and Moscow, which particularly intensified after what happened in Yekaterinburg.
I've been following Azerbaijan in the last, let's say, 20 years, since I was Minister of Tourism, and for the very first time I have visited this beautiful country. Well, yes, it is true what you said. Azerbaijan has emerged as an important, first of all, energy partner and a more strong geopolitical player. Now, regarding the European thinking, you asked me, Baku is viewed through the prism of energy security, regional connectivity, and stability in South Caucasus. Its role will likely grow as Europe diversifies its energy sources and recalibrates, if I can use this verb, as all its relations in the wider neighborhood. So Azerbaijan will continue stay as a geopolitical factor of stability. And now, regarding the Baku-Moscow relations, I can tell you that we are very much concerned in Europe about it. The latest raid on Azerbaijan nationals deepens the gap between Russia and Azerbaijan. It is seen as a part of Russia's broader push to pressure independent regional actors. Now, with Azerbaijan's, as I said before, growing strategic role, Europe watches with concern, urging, as it is obvious, de-escalation and respect for sovereignty in the Southern Caucasus. Look, Orkan, I think what is happening now in the wider region around the former Soviet Union, around Russia, could lead to difficult moments, not only for the region, but also for the whole world. That's why everybody is very much concerned. The only thing I would say, let's hope that reason will prevail and respect to all neighbors, of course, including Azerbaijan.
Indeed, let's hope so. Thank you, Mr. Αβραμόπουλος. Thank you very much indeed for your time and for helping us to look beyond the noise of the present to the deeper patterns at play. I'm so grateful to you.
The pleasure on mine.